Welcome to Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers on Legends 100.3. Brought to you by Alzheimer's Community Care, providing help and hope for thousands of families for the past 20 years. Here's Mary Barnes, CEO of Alzheimer's Community Care.
Welcome to Alzheimer's Sunrise, shining a light on patients and caregivers. This is Karen Gilbert from Alzheimer's Community Care, and I'm here with our president and CEO, Mary Barnes, and a very special guest today.
Very special.
Supervising attorney of Palm Beach County Legal Aid Society, John Foley. We're here on Legends Radio 100.3 FM, and you can call Alzheimer's Community Care at 561-683-2700. Or send us an email to info@alzcare.org. That's ALZCARE.org. And Mary, I'd like to welcome John Foley to the show this morning.
And I want to say a few things about John. I mean, I've known John for many, many years, and you have always been the most generous, kindest, and the most expert and expertise on your craft. And now I understand that you've been doing this practicing since 1988. You received your bachelor's of your BA. What is it?
Bachelor of Arts.
Bachelor's of Arts from the University. I wonder why the University of Miami, and his JD from the University of Miami School of Law. John's practice is limited to representation of nonprofit organizations, which you do an excellent job in all areas of operation, with an emphasis on labor and employment, human resources, governance, corporate law, and transactional matters. John is also an adjunct professor at Florida Atlantic University. I always loved adjunct professors because you're the real guys. You're the real
genuine with the patches.
For the graduate programs in the School of Public Administration. John has run the Legal Aid Society very successful nonprofit legal assistance project, which has held a prominent position in the Palm Beach County nonprofit community for more than 20 years. John currently provides in-house counsel services to over 60 local nonprofit organizations throughout Florida, and regularly offers pro bono services to dozens more. John supervises the Legal Aid Society's health law program, including the HIV AIDS legal project and the medical legal partnership project. When do you sleep, John? I mean, with all this and you give us so much time. I mean, whenever we call, you not only call us right back, but you give us the time. You never ever make me feel, or our HR person or anybody over the phone, you never ever make us feel that you've got a timeline, there's something you've got to do the next minute, whatever. You're wonderful.
Thank you. That's very, very kind of you to say.
No, it's true. It's true. So we've got some questions to ask, John.
Well, I would also like to congratulate you and the Legal Aid Society on another successful pro bono event. I think this was number 30.
Number 30, yep.
And I've been privileged. I think I've attended virtually every one. It is an extraordinary event supporting such an important service. And I just wanted to mention very briefly, because this ties in with something we've been talking about in terms of being preventive in how you take care of yourself and staying active and staying engaged. And I wanted to mention one of your volunteers who is 92 years old and using his skills as an attorney to help in the area of Social Security.
He does Social Security disability for a lot of our clients.
And he works 20 hours a week, I believe you said. And how many families has he helped?
We actually looked for the event. He has, in the last 13 years, represented more than 500 individuals for disability, and it's great.
Extraordinary. So he's spending his retirement in a way that's very healthy and protective for him. And I watched him speak, and he really was extraordinary.
He loves it. Keeps him young.
There you go. So one of the things we'd like to address, we have so many issues. We'll have to have you back because there's way too much, I think, for half an hour. But one thing I would like to address that seems to be a major deal now, and I've been a victim of this 3 times in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and that is a phone call stating that it is the Internal Revenue Service. It's generally a recorded message that is quite strident and insisting that a warrant has been issued for my arrest. I will be taken into custody. Obviously, I know that this is a scam, but we care for families with a loved one that may not know it's a scam. So can you tell us how legal aid can assist with that issue?
Yeah, we do get a lot of those calls, and it's extremely disconcerting that people do that. We do have a number of projects that will be devoted to that, so people can actually call into our main number and let the receptionist know what their problem is, and we would actually direct them to the right person. The number of the office is 561-655-8944. We also have a tax lawyer on staff that will assist people if they do have IRS issues with stolen identity, people filing IRS claims on their behalf. Those are really important. But we're fortunate enough to be funded with a consumer unit that does deal with a lot of these things that can help people through them. These scams, for a lot of people, they sound ridiculous, but a lot of people end up believing them. And that definitely becomes a problem, especially people who are vulnerable or caregivers who are really under a lot of stress and may not be really thinking clearly at the time, and this is kind of the final straw for them.
It's really tough on the public because when you do have a legitimate call and they're calling you, I'll give you an example. Comcast called, and I needed to have a technician come over to my house. My system wasn't working right, so I needed to have them come over. So we talked about the time, we had the date, we had everything all set up. I got a confirmation through an email, and all that. Then I get a call from a person that sounded foreign, and come to find out she was calling from India. And she was following up on a call, and she wanted to know the details of it. And I said, I'm not going to talk to you. I said, I'm not going to talk to you. I've got all my arrangements done. I got my email. I don't need you to confirm anything. And I hung up. So then I called Comcast to report her. And come to find out, there I am on their computer database saying I denied the call.
Oh my! But it's hard to tell the legitimate from the scam.
So I said to the woman I was talking to, I said, this is a little overdone. I mean, you go ahead, we make the appointment, I get the email, it's all been confirmed, and then I have a follow-up. Yeah. So, for seniors and for people that are trying to be careful and everything, that is confusing.
Yeah. It absolutely is.
We find that a lot. They're a victim of people selling alleged life insurance door to door, calling them, asking for credit card information. Is very, very difficult for people who are trusting, especially.
Yeah, but even if you try to be a little paranoid, all of a sudden, guess what? It was something that they did overkill. Yeah. I guess that.
Right, and it's very hard to tell the legitimate from those calls that you should be hanging up on. And we all know, never say yes at the beginning of a call.
Never say yes, and never say your Social Security number under any circumstances.
Or date of birth or anything that's protected information. Well, we'll be back in just a moment. This is Alzheimer's Sunrise, shining a light on patients and caregivers on Legends Radio, 100.3 FM. You can call us at Alzheimer's Community Care at 561-683-2700, or send us a question or a comment to info@alzcare.org, ALZCARE.org. And if you do call or email, please tell us that you heard us on Legends Radio.
John, you must have had some heartbreaking cases. Is there ever one or two that really stick out in your mind about you wish you could have done something more, or it could have been sooner, or?
I mean, it is tough, especially with people who scam people. It really is difficult. We get an enormous amount of people who get scammed with life insurance.
Oh, my goodness.
So that becomes an issue a lot, where people door to door sell them life insurance they'll never collect on because they have problems, tell them this will help your family out, help you take care of you, and they're doing it for all the right reasons, and it's a scam that they can't ever collect on, and that's heartbreaking.
Well, I was involved with the Office of Finance, Florida Office of Finance, and it was one of their lawyers came down, and it was in Leisureville, and there was about 5 families that this agent preyed on, and had, how you have these annuities, and they say that you got to put $30,000 or $60,000 down. It depends on the age, and it's a legitimate process, but they're guaranteeing you income in 10, 15 years, and the person is 80 years old.
We get that all the time. It's tragic.
And so the families all got together, and they called me in as an expert witness. It's the first time they've ever done the expert witness. And so they had a hearing, and it was all over. The judge was up in Tallahassee, And you know what? We got the insurance agent's license taken away from him,
Good.
and he could never even get it back in Florida.
One bad
More of
guy
that
off
has
the
to
street.
happen.
Yeah, definitely does.
You would also think people could be protected by putting their phone numbers on the do not call list. And I will tell you, it is a sieve. It is not a filter. I've been on it for 9 years, and I get an average of 10 calls a week that are unsolicited easily. I had 3 just the other evening inside of 1 hour.
Day,
Yeah,
right.
it's not an
So
effective measure.
It's not an
and
effective
that's-
measure, but
Anymore.
it's something that families could do perhaps for
Correct.
their parents. Get that number on a do not call list. It might cut it down just a bit. Very easy to do on the internet. One of the other issues we wanted to touch on is briefly, we have to take a break shortly, but a little bit about what is the most prevalent type of identity theft right now that you may be addressing.
We probably we get the biggest one that has been a problem for us has been a lot of this IRS identity theft, where people get their information then file tax returns ahead of them.
That's amazing.
That's a big problem. Kids, other people, they'll file immediately, add income to them, and then file on their behalf, and then when they file, theirs gets rejected, and that's been a big scam that is, and then you got to deal with the IRS to straighten it out, which is a little bulky. But we do have, like I said, we have a tax attorney on staff who helps people deal with those situations and get that straightened out with the IRS.
I think that as we age, and these are things that all of us, I think that we need to be prepared for. We have legal papers, and we're very careless about account numbers and that around our house. We hire an aide that comes in, okay? And it's an aide that a friend knew and guaranteed and said and testified and had a testimony, wonderful person, you need this person, blah, blah. You've got this person in your house. Next thing you know, certain things are starting to happen. Now, how did that happen? How did they get that account number, and how did they get that birthday number?
And we do get that also with people who come by, caregivers.
So
having issues,
I guess one of the things we, as a health provider and working with our families, should be actually more insistent on making sure this paperwork disappears.
Right.
That these things are held
The
secure.
will is not hanging
Absolutely.
around on somebody's desk.
All righty, we'll take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you turning 65 and have questions about Medicare? Humana can help. Get Medicare ready with a Humana Medicare Advantage plan featuring an affordable monthly plan premium. If you are or have recently become eligible for Medicare, call a licensed Humana sales agent today at 1-800-874-6535. Humana has the benefits you need plus the extras you want. That number again is 1-800-874-6535, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. You must continue to pay your Medicare Part B premium. Facing a terminal illness can put you and your family through a range of emotions. You may not know what to do, but you do know that you need help. The hospice services of TrustBridge are here to help. Hospice will provide physical and emotional support, as well as delivering medications and any needed medical equipment. In most cases, your loved one can receive hospice care in the comfort of their home, and their care will be fully covered by Medicare or most private insurance policies. Ask your doctor to tell you more about hospice care from TrustBridge and visit www.trustbridge.com.
Welcome back to Alzheimer's Sunrise, shining a light on patients and caregivers on Legends Radio 100.3. You can call Alzheimer's Community Care at 561-683-2700 or send us an email to info@alzcare.org. And if you call or email, please tell us that you heard us on Legends Radio. We'd love to know that. And also, you can visit our website, which is alzcare.org, alzcare.org, where you can listen and any of the broadcasts that we're doing right now and listening, you can go to that website and hear it anytime you want.
And all the past shows
and several
as well.
times if you can. So,
Coming
Karen?
back to our discussion of what services, and there are so many available through the Legal Aid Society, one of that has really dominated recent news and is critically important for so many of our, particularly our older residents, is that of guardianship. So can we talk about what guardianship is and what it is designed to address?
Okay, that's a great question. In Florida's got kind of an interesting law that someone is competent to handle their own affairs until there's a court proceeding that says they're not. So what a guardianship is the court basically saying that somebody either consents to, or maybe has a court decide that someone is unable to handle either their personal affairs or their financial affairs or both, and then has somebody else take over that aspect, one or both of those aspects of their lives. And one of the things that's particularly important for people with Alzheimer's or early stages of dementia is even though they may not have the capacity to do things, they can go in and if they don't have a guardian appointed, they could buy a car, they could buy a house, they can do just about anything. So it's sometimes very important to make sure someone can carry on their, affairs that they may need in terms of even dealing with a cable company. They're going to need something like that. So we have an entire department, a guardianship advocacy project that will actually assist people with getting that set up. And I think it's something that's not used as much as it probably needs to be used, where people are, losing the capacity to take care of either their personal or their financial affairs. Especially with a lot of the new banking regulations, it's very difficult if somebody does not have legal authority to do that.
Well, that's right. And we get very worried when we hear a patient who may be in an early stage, still living alone, telling us suddenly they have a new friend who comes by and helps them pay their bills. And so we become very concerned about what are they really paying out of that checkbook, and where are their funds going. And the family is not in Florida, the family is far away, and we get this sense that they really may need someone to safeguard their money.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because at least once the guardianship's appointed by the court, there are periodic reports that have to be made to track for the money. So at least there's some assurance of that. And in fact, one of the things that we do that I consider very kind of important is we are actually the public guardian for Palm Beach and Martin counties, which means that if somebody needs a guardian but does not have a family member who's either willing or able to serve as a guardian, we become basically the public guardian for that person. And we have literally thousands of clients that we're the public guardian for, where we make sure they're getting, their medications. If they need, books ordered or clothing, we take care of all of those, even if they're in a facility, all of those things so they can enjoy, their life as best as possible.
And we get caught in the dynamics between the children. Daughter goes in while dad and mom is especially failing. Mom may have passed away. Dad's now got the house and all the jewelry and everything. And all of a sudden the daughter comes in and starts saying, I'll take care of this, Dad, and I'll take care of that. And then makes her power of attorney. And then the next thing you know, there's certain things that are disappearing. And the will gets changed because, and because there's such a trusting, it's your daughter, it's your child. And then all of a sudden somebody gets a notice on some change of some kind, and you've got the son and the other daughter that's involved, and it gets to be a very sad situation, because you know what, John, that family's never going to be together again if that gets out of control.
It is difficult. We do see a lot of that. They're kind of typical family types. You get the one brother who doesn't care, the one, a sister who is too involved, so it becomes an issue. And I think that's why, on a related issue, making sure you have things like healthcare surrogates and powers of attorney, other things in advance, so you can spell out who can make those decisions. Because if they don't, then a lot of times the kids fight, or they fight with other family members about what the person would want, what's best for them. So a lot of that stuff, everybody should have that, really, not just if you have an issue.
You're absolutely right, and we advocate for that all the time. Plan early. Often we'll see where one child serves as the health surrogate, the other serves as essentially guardian of the property. We've seen that work out very well because it was planned in advance, and it was planned when that parent was still competent to be part of the discussion. And there's nothing like advanced planning. And with health surrogacy, we always encourage them, the patient, who will be the patient later on, make this plan while you have that capacity. And if you have strong feelings about your health care and interventions you want and interventions you do not want, make sure you choose a surrogate who will abide by your wishes. And it has to align with their own principles and their own beliefs, because if it's contrary, even if they're a blood relative, they may not carry out those instructions that you've prepared. So sometimes that best health surrogate is actually not a relative.
We are a neutral party as an organization. So a lot of times families do listen to us when we start bringing up those questions. And we also, because a lot of times the children are wanting to do more, but we got this generation that everything's private. They do everything, they're independent. They want to take care of their own. They don't want to bother the kids because they're going through all their other types of either divorce or there's other kinds of situations going on personally. So the parents are trying to take care of themselves, and then all of a sudden somebody gets a heart attack, and all of a sudden you've got this person all alone. We had a very sad situation the other situation that not only is it the dynamics with the children, but we also have the dynamics with the Baker Act. And a lot of families are caught into that as well. So without any of this medical surrogate, like you say, and getting all these legal definitions in place, it really is a hard.
Well, Mary, I'd like to come back to that in just a moment. This is Alzheimer's Sunrise, shining a light on patients and caregivers on Legends Radio. You can call us at 561-683-2700 or send us your comment or question to info@alzcare.org. That's ALZCARE.org. And that is the address of our website as well, where you can visit and get a tremendous amount of information and also listen to previous recordings. Again, alzcare.org, ALZCARE.org. And this issue of the healthcare choices, the Baker Act being an involuntary commitment to a psychiatric facility, and I'm so glad you touched on that. When families do not understand what could be Alzheimer's or a related disorder, they often interpret behaviors as being in the mental illness realm.
Yep.
And the Baker Act is specifically for mental illness. So a patient who is developing Alzheimer's or Lewy body disease, or the effects of vascular dementia, or chronic trauma that can affect much younger patients, as we now know, if they are not given that quality diagnosis, they may be treated in that mental illness realm, which can actually have really the opposite effect of what you and we have worked with legal aid in some of those situations where someone was put into that system when really what they had was a cognitive disorder. So in working with families, we are very often navigating them back to the physicians to figure out that behavior is a way of communicating. They're telling us something is going on, and often it's medical or it's medication related, and that is not mental illness. So can you tell us where sometimes you may have been involved with Baker Act situations that really needed to be redirected?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we do get a lot of calls from family members who, in dealing with dementia-like symptoms, want a Baker Act. And usually they're out of state. They're trying to get information about that, as opposed to having the resources of where they need to get care. Because a Baker Act, in addition, like you said, for being very limited for limited circumstances, their really only obligation is to get you out of a crisis mode where you're going to hurt yourself or someone else, and it's not a treatment situation, which is what people need. And we do see that a lot, especially with dementia type issues. It's difficult not just for the person who's going through it to recognize they have it, but even family members start to get into fights over who has it, who doesn't, whether they what it is, the severity of it, and a denial process.
Well, I remember a case not too long ago where legal aid was of great assistance. We were called upon to help, and we reached out to legal aid, and this was a gentleman who had a head injury back about 20 years ago, serious head injury, and he was actually jailed. He had been jailed for a crime, and he was paroled. And he was now jailed again because he didn't pay a certain fee on time. And he didn't have the cognition to understand and to pay fees on time. And now he's in jail again, but he's got a cognitive disorder from a head injury. And so we all worked together. We were able to locate a family member who took over the responsibility of getting the fee paid on time, because he was doing very well in the community now. Long years after he was jailed for a crime, he's doing well in the community. We don't want to see him jailed because he doesn't have the capacity to remember when a fee is due.
A lot of families don't understand the impact a B and Baker Act actually does do to that patient. Yeah. And Marnie Ponce, this organization, our organization, actually put together an Alice in Wonderland thing. And it really is a very, very clear, has great clarity in what happens with the Baker Act. Yeah. So it's really a serious legal issue and does not have to happen.
Oh no, absolutely. I think you get a lot of, I hate to say it, but you get out-of-state families who someone's a tax lawyer in New York, and they start Googling, and the next thing you know, they're trying to get that done, as opposed to maybe coming down, seeing what their family
getting
member,
the
their parents,
medical
what the options
getting them
are.
to the right doctor. Because again, a lot of doctors, I'm sure you deal with it. Unless you go to the right doctor, some doctors don't always spot at an early stage.
And that's another whole realm of advocacy
That's right.
we're working on. That doctors will screen and identify cognitive disorders in a standard way across the board, so that they're not mischaracterized or treated in a way that is not productive and doesn't address the real root cause of the problem.
I feel sorry for other communities because they don't have a John Foley working for the Legal Aid Society like we are so blessed.
Very, very kind.
No, it's true. And we are so blessed to have you. And we've got to have you back again.
We have just hit the tip of the iceberg.
Because there's so many complications and so many barriers that box our families and our patients in.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's a difficult environment, and
heartbreaking.
In a tragic situation, it's very hard to deal with from everybody.
And I know law enforcement is trying very hard to work it out too, because they are an officer that does so in fact have the power to do the Baker Act, but they're really trying very hard. There are officers that will say, I am not going to Baker Act him because this is what you can do, and that's where education has come in. But I do think that we are so lucky to have you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers. To learn more about the help and hope available from Alzheimer's Community Care, call 561-683-2700 or visit alzcare.org. That's ALZcare.org. Tune in next Sunday at 6:30 for another edition of Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers, right here on Legends 100.3.